We seem to be doing better with the pandemic, and a lot of people receive the vaccine and they seem to be doing well. Yet there's a lot of people who are hesitant and some people who downright refuse to have the vaccine. And why is that? When we look at research, there's a lot of good research that shows that the vaccine is very effective. Out of Israel, 600,000 people that were vaccinated early on in December and January showed that there was 90 to 95% effectiveness in the people who received the vaccine after the second shot. After the first shot, they had 50 to 60% effectiveness after just one dose. So that's a dose related response, which also increases the strength of the validity that this vaccine really works. Another article that was April 7th, just recently, that came out that showed that people who have the infection to COVID and then got the vaccination for COVID had boosted neutralizing antibodies to many of the variants. So it did help in their neutralizing antibodies. These are both very good studies that support the effectiveness and the safety of these vaccines. So why do people hesitate? I ask people every day in my office. One of the reasons I haven't done many of these videos is because I've been really busy in the office taking care of people and taking care of this pandemic. But one of the things I ask almost everybody, have you gotten the vaccine? What's encouraging is most people say yes, or they're going to and they're excited about getting it. But the people who haven't yet, some of them will say, I'm waiting. I'm waiting to see more experience with this vaccine. Fair enough. But there's never been a vaccine in the history of the world that has been rolled out as quickly to as many people as this one. So there are hundreds of millions of people ahead of you in line that have already received this vaccine. You, I'm sure, know people who have gotten it. Ask them their experience. I don't think you're going to get bad answers from people that have received it. I talk to people every day, and the worst thing I hear is a sore arm, aches, pains, fever. Some people had a day where they laid in bed and rested after their shot, but they felt better afterwards. The majority of people I talk to have a sore arm and very little side effects at all. So talk to people. I understand waiting and seeing how many. Now, we've had lots of people get this, but not a lot of time. That is very true. 4 months since this vaccine has been rolled out to a large number of people is not a long time. But it has been a whole year since the very first participants in the studies have had it. So we've had a year of experience with this vaccine. I don't think we're going to see anything new come out of the closet about this vaccine or any awful side effect down the line. I think the only side effects are going to be what we see right away with the aches, pains, and soreness and fever. I don't think we're going to see much more. The reason is because the RNA and the DNA vaccines are broken down very readily right after they are transcribed or translated in our cells. And I don't think there's anything left of that vaccine for later. It's just nucleotides that are broken down and they're part of our cellular mix after that. So I don't think they're going to cause a problem with us down the line. But if you're in the wait and see category, I understand that. But time has gone by and we have had a year. Some will say I'm letting others go ahead of me because I'm young, I'm healthy, and I don't need it. Another good reason to wait. I don't think that's bad. But now is a time where every adult can have this vaccine. New York has opened up to everybody, so it's time to make that decision. So one of the reasons why I want to do this video today is so I can ask you some challenging questions. Now, there are some people who deny the vaccine's validity. If you don't believe this research, if you don't believe me, it's going to be hard to convince you, but I'm going to try anyway and ask you some challenging questions. Some deny the seriousness of the illness itself. I've seen this statistic thrown out there frequently that 99%, 99.9% of everybody who has this gets over it. It's a very misleading statistic. The reality is that yes, many people have mild illness to this, and they will recover from it. That doesn't mean that there's not horrible side effects and problems and illness. Ask somebody who spent 2 weeks in the hospital if they could avoid that, if they would. We have to think beyond our own personal effects and our own personal risks. You can take risks for yourself, but if we don't do more of this together and have more immunity, we're going to keep spreading it to people that don't want to have it. So one of my first challenges is to think beyond the effects of you and think about this as a pandemic that's broader than you and your own experience. We like to say things like we're all in this together. We need to work together. This is a time when it's so true that we need to trust the experts. We need to trust medical opinion and what to do for this, and even trust that somebody knows something more than you do through your internet research. So that's my first challenging question. If you've been doing research on your own on the internet and you've been reading things against the vaccine, do you really want to trust your internet research for this major decision? Now, what have people like me done all my life? I've 30 years in medicine now. I work with vaccines that entire time. I'm an internist pediatrician. I see a lot of children, so it means I've done a lot of vaccinating over the years. This is not the first time I've talked about vaccines and their possible side effects and their effectiveness. This is what I've done for 30 years. So when I come to you and I say this is a safe and effective vaccine, yes, it's got some side effects, and yes, very rarely there could be some serious ones, but for a large, the vast majority, it's going to be very helpful, and we're going to save millions of lives by vaccinating. It comes from a long time of experience. It comes from not just experience, it comes from study. I read and I keep up with these things. I had the medical training, 4 years of residency, 4 years of medical school, 4 years of undergrad in science to understand science and understand research that I'm reading today. So I ask you again, do you want to leave a decision like this in the hands of your internet research that you've done without the experience that somebody like I can have and interpret for you? And I hope that you could trust. I have a couple thousand patients who trust me. And when even the people who come to me and they say in the beginning of a conversation, I don't think I'm going to get this vaccination. Even after about 3 or 4 minutes of conversation, I would say most of them go away saying, I'll get this vaccination. I'm honored to be in that position where people do trust me, and I hold that in high regard. I feel the weight of that. I have people's lives in my hands with every decision I make. So I have the weight of responsibility. And what does that do for me? I have to be careful about what I read. I have to be careful about what I say. So when you do research on your own, and even when you do that research and you spread it to other people, and you're not in the medical field, you don't have the weight of responsibility. You don't have the weight of other people's lives in your hands. This pandemic is turning a corner of sorts. We're sort of afraid that there's going to be a fourth wave, and we'll see how that goes. But I think we're going to get over this. I think it's going to be better. So ask yourself this. If you're not getting vaccinated, what have you done for this pandemic besides hide for a year? What have you done to make this pandemic go away? Now, it is important that we isolated for a year, but in the end, do you think this virus is just going to go away by itself and you didn't vaccinate, but everybody else around you did vaccinate? What have you done to help this pandemic go away? I think vaccination is a big part of this. I'll also put out there, those of you that have suffered through the infection have also got immunity, and now you've got immunity, and you're helping us to get to herd immunity. We can't think that we just hid for a year and this pandemic is going to get better. There's got to be action. The vaccine is what's bringing us out of it. People who have lived through the infection are bringing us through this. And we need to think seriously about what we need to do to help with that. One of the things that I think people who don't accept vaccinations don't appreciate, and I can't really help this, I don't think I can get them to appreciate, is the idea that you are benefiting from all those who have been immunized around you. If you look at pneumococcal disease, that's Streptococcus pneumococcus, is a serious bacterial infection that caused meningitis, pneumonia, and ear infections and other things in children. We started in the around 2000 and in the 1990s vaccinating against pneumococcus in infants and children. And the rate of pneumococcal disease, invasive meningitis, pneumonia, went down by 99% in children. When I was in residency, before this vaccine was in widespread use, I was very good at doing spinal taps on babies because whenever babies came in with fevers, we needed to check and see if they had meningitis from pneumococcus or Haemophilus, which is another bacteria that cause serious illness. Both of those bacteria, Haemophilus and pneumococcus, have almost gone away, a large percentage of it, from vaccination. If you don't accept the vaccinations for your children, you are benefiting because that bacteria, sorry, is not circulating today as much. And so you're much safer and you're much healthier because of all the other people that have taken that vaccine. Same thing is with polio. The world has benefited from polio. We've been vaccinating for polio since the 1950s in the United States. It was in the 1980s or so that polio was eradicated from the United States. So the rest of us are benefiting today because we don't have this horrible, paralyzing illness or virus of polio circulating in our country because so many other people have taken the vaccine before us. Look at that and ask yourself, how much am I benefiting from other people who are vaccinating for me so that I can be safer today? Now, I understand you may not accept that premise from the beginning, but I want you to think about that anyway. Also ask, am I thinking beyond myself? When I ask people, are you going to get vaccinated? They have concerns for the side effects for themselves and what it's going to do to them down in the future. You you really have to understand epidemiology and virology and global health to understand that your decision with this affects other people. I understand one of the reasons I get a flu vaccination every year is not that it guarantees that I won't get the flu because I know that it's possible I'll get the flu. But I know that my risk of getting the flu is significantly decreased. Not 100%. It might be 50%, it might be 80% each year. But I know that if I take that and at least half the years I don't get the flu, I'm not going to spread it to people. We know that COVID and influenza are spread before we even know that we're sick with it. So I take vaccines not just for myself, but for my patients so that I don't give them influenza. And I got this vaccination so I don't give other people COVID. It's also a global picture that the more we vaccinate, the more immunity we have, the fewer people are going to die from this. It's very real. Are you thinking beyond yourself and what you can do for other people when you decide to get this vaccination? Email me, text me, write me messages. I'd love to answer some more of your questions. I hope this has been thought provoking, and I hope there's been some good medicine for you. Thanks.